Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name, joined in studio here by our news director at One News Now, Fred Jackson. We're going to kind of bring you as current as we can to this tragedy in Connecticut. And, of course, what we have heard to this point is there was a shooting at an elementary school, Sandy Hook, Connecticut, and 27 people are dead at last report, including the gunman. A second gunman has been arrested, and we'll try to bring you more details as we have them. So Fred Jackson, thanks for coming over and giving us an update. What do we know about this circumstance? Fill us in.
Well, Newtown, Connecticut, a fairly small community, actually about 27,000, about 70 miles northeast of New York City. And the school is the Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown. What we know is that around 9:30 East Coast time this morning, a call went to local police saying that there was an incident unfolding at this elementary school. And police arrived very shortly, and obviously they ascertained fairly quickly that this was a major event. State police and others were called in almost immediately. And what we know at this point, it is a K through 4 school. There were 2 kindergarten classes in this school. What we know is that a gunman, which the Associated Press is describing as a gunman, a 20-year-old, the Associated Press, other reports say 24, with ties to the school. Does this mean he was employed? Is he a dad? Whatever the case may be.
Now, it seemed, Fred, if he was, so they're thinking the guy was 20, so it would seem like he would be probably too young to be a father. If he was 24, that would be possible, because we've got kids count down to kindergarten age, but...
And I'm not sure, with ties to the school, what does that mean? Could he have been an employee? We just don't know at this point. He is dead, but what we know is that he went in there, and he went to an office where the morning announcements were being made. And over the loudspeaker, that's when the rest of the school began to understand that a violent incident was taking place. We do know amongst the dead that the school principal is dead. As I mentioned, there are 2 kindergarten classes in this school, and what we've been hearing on the reports thus far is that in one of those kindergarten classes, the kids are unaccounted for. I am translating that to mean that the 18 students of the 27 killed, the 27 number includes the gunman, 18 kids probably, according to these reports, were in one of these kindergarten classes.
And so is the implication there, Fred, that the death toll could be higher than 18 children?
Well, I just listened to a preliminary briefing from one of the police officers there in Newtown, and he says the building is secure. He did not repeat the number that we're getting, the 27 number from the Associated Press. But the indication is that they do have a total at this point. Now, the other question area is that there was a second person. The gunman is dead. A second person was arrested. We saw aerial shots early on about 2 hours ago of police in a wooded area behind the school. They took into custody a man with fatigue-type pants on in handcuffs. He hollered out to parents who had gathered there, "I had nothing to do with this." So we want to be very clear at this point. We can't identify him as a second shooter, but he is in custody. He is being questioned at this point. But you know, Brian, through all of this, and the details are going to come out and will unfold as we get through this afternoon. But I think there's a couple of points to make here. If you had to guess or speculate where violence might occur in this country, you would probably go to a large city. This is a small community. It is not the place where you would expect these kinds of things. But here you have these parents now running to this school this morning, getting news. The relieved parents seeing some of their kids being released. What the police did, they did a search of the school. They secured it. They gathered all the kids into one area, staging area. That's what they're calling it. And then they began to release these students to their parents. But there's still much more. As of a few moments ago, the body of the shooter is still in the school. And obviously police trying to piece this together. But once again, if you're just joining us, this school, an elementary school, Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut, about 70 miles northeast of New York City, the scene of an absolutely horrific event today.
And Fred,
it's a day, Brian, when you have real struggles even reporting this. We as rational people, we try to get a handle on this, but I don't know if that's possible, Brian, because what rationale possibly could even begin to justify a person taking guns? We hear reports of at least 4 automatic weapons involved, taking guns and going in and doing this. And on top of this, you're talking kindergarten kids?
Yeah,
5-year-olds.
Starting in kindergarten. That's where the shooting started. Maybe that's where it was contained or confined. Mm-hmm. You know, and I wonder, Fred, again, this is total speculation, but, you know, there had to be some motive for this. This guy had to be driven by something. And, you know, we've seen a number of stories where you have these custody disputes and one spouse or the other, typically it'll be the husband and father, will kill his wife and the children. In other words, if I can't have them, nobody can have them. You know, and I have no idea if there's any basis to that. There's got to be some reason why he picked that school, why he picked those classrooms. And, of course, obviously, we're just going to have to wait till more of this comes in because it's just hard to understand this on any kind of rational basis.
Maybe an initial clue is that, as those reports indicated, the rest of the school found out about this because the morning announcements were being made. It appears he went to the school principal's office first. So, again, if we're speculating, yes, at this point, but the indication might be from that. This man had a grudge, had a problem with something perhaps this principal did. Again, that's pure speculation, but the fact that the shooting apparently began in the offices, in the office area of the school.
And so apparently some of the beginning of the shooting was audible over the PA system?
They were making the morning announcements, as schools do.
And then the shooting started.
And then the teachers, the kids could then hear these gunshots apparently over the PA system. And then the story unfolded.
I'm looking at a story here on CBS New York, Fred, has excerpts from a letter that had been sent to the families of Sandy Hook about the enhanced security system that they had set up. I just want to read a little bit of it. Here's what it says. As usual, exterior doors will be locked during the day. Every visitor will be required to ring the doorbell at the front entrance, and the office staff will use a visual monitoring system to allow entry. Now, that might make some sense if the shooter had some connection to the school. He may not have aroused suspicion when he comes to the entryway and might have been buzzed in because he was familiar to the staff. Visitors will still be required to report directly to the office and sign in, and apparently that's where the shooting started. If our office staff does not recognize you, you will be required to show identification with a picture ID. Now, that's interesting to me. If the staff does not recognize you, apparently you could be buzzed in, but then when you came into the office, you would have to present ID. So apparently it would be possible to be given admittance into the school without them recognizing you visually, and that is perhaps what happened. The page is reloading here. Let me get down. I want to read a little bit more because it has some specific descriptions of kind of some of the time parameters. Let's see. Doors will be locked at approximately 9:30 a.m. Apparently the shooting started at 9:41, or at least that's when first reports are. So whether he got into the building maybe before the doors were locked, if he's in the building at 9:29, the doors would not be locked, and maybe he'd have some other means of getting in. Any student arriving after that time, after 9:30, must be walked into the building and signed in at the office. Before that time, our regular drop-off procedures will be in place, and then the rest is instructions to parents on how to cooperate with these new security procedures. But obviously, whatever these security procedures were in place, they weren't enough to deter this shooter.
Well, I think the key here is from the Associated Press story is that a 20-year-old man, this is the gunman, with ties to the school. Again, we don't know yet, but if he has ties to the school, possibly an employee or a parent, that the teachers knew. Obviously, the police have been told by one of the survivors in there, we know this man. I assume that's where this information comes from. A teacher telling authorities, we know who this gunman is. So at this point, an employee, a parent, perhaps, and again, I think one of the clues is that the shooting apparently began in the principal's office or in the administration area. So the purpose of this gunman apparently focused on the principal in the administration's office.
Well, and Fred, I know you'll be monitoring this, and as you get breaking news, if you'd be kind enough to kind of feel free to break in either by giving us a call or by coming back into the studio. We'd like to get updated on this situation as it develops. But, it's interesting to me. You have the starting in the principal's office, and maybe there was the grudge, as you suggested. Maybe the principal was balking at his request to go visit one of the classrooms because his suspicions were aroused and he had to go through the principal to get to the kindergarten classroom. But I think that's a major question. Why did he go to that classroom or those particular classrooms? That I think is information that would be very, very important. So Fred Jackson, our news director here at One News Now, thank you for that update.
You're
and
welcome.
Fred, if you'll keep us posted as this situation develops, we appreciate that very much. So we are monitoring this terrible, terrible, horrible tragedy in Connecticut. 27 people dead, including 18 children. Shooter beginning in kindergarten classrooms. There's one story I've seen that indicates that there may be a body that has been spotted inside the home of the gunman. So this may have begun somehow with some incident of domestic violence. So we're still waiting for more news, more development on that. They've got a second shooter in custody. As we mentioned, he was apparently tracked down in the woods wearing a black jacket and camouflage pants and insisting on his innocence as he was taken into custody. So we will continue to follow this story with you. Fred Jackson, our news director, will be back with updates as they occur. So let's continue to keep the families. And again, I don't know what security procedures were in place, but one thing is very, very clear. There was nobody in that school, and this is the heartbreak to me, nobody in that school that was prepared to defend those innocent children. Apparently nobody in the school was armed. So a guy walks in there with automatic or semi-automatic weapons. There's nobody in the building that can protect those innocent, helpless little children. That's a tragedy. Focal Point, AFR Talk.